Welcome to Your Good News. It's either fun or sentimental or uplifting and always some sort of good news. We got a lot to get to. We've got dogs and nurses and the arts, but let's start off with all things sporty. We can dry our eyes from our playoff losses and look forward to something big coming to Minnesota. The NFL draft will be held here in 2028. And while that may seem like a long way off, Jessica Hart explains how the planning is already underway.
In 2018, Minnesota bid farewell to the Super Bowl. A decade later, the state will bid hello to the NFL draft.
We can't wait for 2028 to get here.
Matt Munier with Minnesota Sports and Events put together the bid that's bringing the draft back to the Midwest.
We've had to expand our plans and our footprint, quite honestly, to keep up with the growth of the draft.
U.S. Bank Stadium will anchor the draft in downtown Minneapolis.
This is really going to be a great way for us to reintroduce ourselves to the world.
Melvin Tennant is the president and CEO of Meet Minneapolis.
Clearly, we know that the NFL wants to have a backdrop that really shows off the city. So we have lots of opportunities to do that.
Around the stadium, there is room, depending on the stage layout, for somewhere in the 100,000. And then again, layer on top of that the watch parties, all of the other things that are happening in the community, and we feel really confident that we will have a huge crowd.
They plan to have smaller watch parties throughout the city and across the metro.
We want to activate the region. We want to make it as accessible for fans and allow fans to kind of choose their draft experience, right? You know, some people want to be in that sea of humanity, you know, waiting for the names to be read off the card. Others just want to be part of the vibe, right?
A vibe they hope the entire state will feel as they bid hello to 2028.
Organizers say they plan to have events located throughout the metro to really show off what makes Minnesota so unique. Their bid included events at Mall of America, in St. Paul, and of course in Eagan near the Vikings practice facilities. Well, the Wild are out of the playoffs after losing to the Colorado Avalanche, but you can still cheer for a Minnesotan. One of the Avs' biggest stars once called a Minnesota boarding school home. Nathan MacKinnon is one of 52 Shattuck St. Mary's School alumni currently playing in the NHL. But among all the names, I should say, that have come through the program, there's one man who stands above the rest. Our Morgan Wolf introduces us to him.
Macklin Celebrini.
As the next generation of hockey stars
Nathan MacKinnon
carve out their path to greatness, there's one man who's been giving Shattuck an extra edge.
I mean, Rooster's the greatest.
That's the nickname I got, and it stuck.
Meet Steve Erickson, a name that you don't usually hear because he's known as Rooster, a nickname given to him decades ago by a friend.
No.
And it's not because of the hair.
I mean, it's not as big as it used to be.
He's been driving the Zamboni and handling equipment since 1974.
Perfect, every time.
As for his coupe here,
every time I turn around, somebody's giving me something.
A mini hockey museum.
I got the jacket from Herb Brooks.
Helmets, gloves, sticks, autographs from stars who he knew before they were winning Stanley Cups, like Sidney Crosby.
He's doing the same interviews at his age now as he was doing at 15. He was so well put together.
Some items in here end up finding their way back home.
Had a really nice J.P. Parisi Minnesota North Star jersey that he signed for me 2 weeks ago. Zach Parisi was in here with his son, and I gifted it back to him.
A reflection of his commitment to the kids.
I'm the brother, cousin, uncle.
It's deeper than just sharpening skates.
Dad, mom that these kids don't have when they're here.
He's kind of our one celebrity. You know, he embodies kind of all the characteristics that we hope our coaches have. You know, somebody who's deeply committed to the work that we do, has an incredible, just undeniable passion for Shattuck hockey, Shattuck St. Mary's School.
They're to help the kids on their journey. And for teenagers playing a competitive sport, support.
He just takes great care of the kids.
Can make a difference.
Haven't fired me yet.
Morgan Wolf, KARE 11 News.
From football and hockey to twirling. 2 northwestern Wisconsin baton twirlers will take the international stage later this summer to compete in the World Freestyle and Rhythmic Twirl Championships. It's a thing. Both of those twirlers train at a small studio in Superior, and tonight Blake Hornstein introduces us to one of them.
I'm 21 years old, and I literally grew up in a baton twirling studio.
Track's Nelson Cavallez has a special talent.
Sometimes I like to call it my party trick. I just can kind of pull a baton out of the car and twirl baton.
It's more than just a trick, but a skill that's won hundreds of competitions, national awards, and a spot on Team USA to compete in Paris. But until recently, it's been his best-kept secret.
There's very few people outside of my family and Sterling Silver Studio that even know I'm a baton twirler.
Nelson Cavallez is the only male competitor selected to represent the U.S., but the prestige has always gone hand in hand with the stigma.
It's not something that I've ever been embarrassed of or ashamed of, but it's, when you're a 21-year-old man, it's not something that you usually bring up in everyday conversation that you're a baton twirler.
And catch.
Now with the World Championship opportunity,
Third position.
Trax is confronting his personal demons
And right hand out.
in hopes that his story
1, 2.
can help someone else.
And catch.
I'm trying to share a little bit more about it and talk about it a little bit more, just to kind of remove that stigma around, baton twirling only being a sport for females.
His mom, Carolyn's seen it too, and says it all came to a head when she came across a poster in the halls of Superior High School.
Trax was the tallest member of the team, so he was, smack dab in the middle of this line of twirlers, and clearly he was a young man, not a girl, but they had to label it girls twirling.
As a mom, she wasn't happy, but as the owner of a twirling studio for over 35 years, she saw it as a chance to blaze a new trail.
We laughed about it, right? But I can only imagine that as a young male athlete, that was, a little bit disheartening. You can use it as an example of, okay, this is something that we need to change.
For Trax, change means evolving into more than an athlete, but an advocate for shattering stereotypes.
It's a little bit more than baton twirling at this point. It also has something to do with removing the stigma of things are only for one kind of people, one gender or age, and we're gonna stir just like that.
Trax is also an instructor, teaching classes in the same studio
There you go.
that raised him.
And take a bow.
Passing the baton
And go back and forth.
and the message
5, 6.
to the next generation.
Beautiful. Nice job.
It can be for everybody. It can be for little kids, older kids. It can be for anyone.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I hope it inspires somebody to try something different, even if that's not baton twirling.
Well, Trax could not share the routine he will be performing, but did reveal the soundtrack would be a classic, Painted Black by the Rolling Stones. The other twirler headed to Paris for the World Championships is 17-year-old Lila Gosinski. She was selected as an alternate on the team. And by the way, the World Championships will be held from August 5th through the 9th. Well, now you may be surprised to hear that just last year, boys volleyball officially became a high school sport in Minnesota, but you may be even more surprised by a team trying to make the playoffs this year. Boyd Hoopert has their one-of-a-kind origin story.
Grab an Animal Farm novel and have a seat.
Mastering a language new to a people
Your words.
takes practice.
Satirical.
A people
Contradictory.
who landed in a most unlikely place.
So this is the Chuukese flag. Think of it as the Minnesota state flag. Chuuk is a state in Micronesia.
Micronesia, a nation made up of hundreds of Pacific islands, hosted a Peace Corps volunteer from Minnesota.
He brought a first family back to Milan, Minnesota. And from that, family followed family.
Finding ready work at a nearby turkey plant. After 25 years, Micronesians now make up more than half the population of this prairie town that once welcomed Norwegian settlers.
Who did you say works for Napoleon?
But language
Dogs and ducks.
Come on! Light feet, light feet.
is not the only thing
All right, go.
mastered with practice.
Help. We just play volleyball every day. Come on.
From the time they can walk, Micronesians have always played.
Volleyball. Yeah. Every day.
So for Abraham Chico and the others, the timing couldn't have been better.
I was really excited. Me too. Very pumped.
Pumped because last year, boys volleyball became Minnesota's newest high school sport. And here was Lac-Qui-Parle Valley High School, where nearly 1 of every 5 students is Micronesian.
We knew we could get a large chunk of our kids participating in this if we add this.
But even athletic director Zach Stelter didn't expect this.
A lot of kids, yeah.
So soon.
A lot of kids.
And not, you may notice, just any kids.
34 of 36 are Micronesian on our team.
Andrew Schmidt, assistant coach, and head coach Molly Hennon immediately ran into a problem.
There's 0 teams within 130 miles.
Big schools play boys volleyball.
We're at the Spring Lake Park volleyball tournament. $10, please. All right, ready?
But now warming up in the gym, Little Lac-Qui-Parle Valley
Medals.
High School.
1, 2, 3. Eagles!
Ever heard of them?
No, I haven't. Here it comes.
You're about to. With no small school competition, Lac-Qui-Parle routinely travels 3 hours to play the powerhouses of Minnesota sports. Schools 10 times their size.
Lac-Qui-Parle.
Lac?
Schools still
What?
learning.
Lac or Powell? Woo!
Remember the boys' language teacher? That's Hope Schmidt, Instagramming and live streaming for parents who can't afford travel
Cover.
and weekends in hotels.
At this point, we don't have any home matches. So this is important that we keep them looped in on how the team's doing.
Pretty well against Forest Lake, by the looks of things.
I'm very proud of them.
Ashlyn Sarber moved from Milan to the Twin Cities.
I'm just so glad that I could see them, at least my nephews and cousins and all them boys.
JV beat Maple Grove at this last tournament, and we drove through Maple Grove leaving, and I said, everybody look, and their population was like 71,000. And I said, Milan is 400.
Unknown for now.
Lac-Qui-Parle Valley.
Woohoo! But remember the name of the undersized school
They're on fire.
with oversized dreams.
Good.
Boyd Hooper, Carol 11 News. Spring Lake Park.
In their inaugural season, the boys from Lac-Qui-Parle have won half their matches against schools that dwarf them in size. Their goal is to make it to state. To do so, though, they'll need to win their section playoffs, which include Edina, Minnetonka, and Wayzata. Well, still ahead, art and music go hand in hand, and recently both have brought joy to people in the Twin Cities in very special ways. Welcome back. Recently, Art-A-Whirl took over Northeast Minneapolis. 1,400 artists convened at over 100 locations all across the city. And as Joe McCoy explains, for many of those local businesses, the added foot traffic was a much-needed boost.
I make beads, marbles, and small sculptures.
Mary Schwartz is in her happy place.
And now's the shaping part.
The glass torch worker is making pieces for her busiest weekend of the year,
And
Art-A-Whirl.
there's a bead. 2/3 of my art life is this weekend, of my art profits.
She's one of 1,400 artists participating in the 31st annual event,
It has grown exponentially.
which organizers say will draw roughly 200,000 people over 3 days.
Some artists make their entire studio rent for the year.
Anna Becker is the Northeast Minneapolis Arts Association Executive Director. She says this weekend lifts up not only the artist, but the entire Northeast community.
It is a hugely important event for all the restaurants and bars and breweries.
Uncle Frankie's restaurant is feeling that rush.
This is hands down typically the busiest weekend we have in the year.
Owner Larry Domek has his staff working overtime to ensure every customer leaves happy.
This is the largest open-air art fair in the country, and it brings in people from far and wide.
The whole neighborhood is abuzz with everything that's going on. Art is something that everybody needs in their life, everybody knows, everybody is comforted by.
A chance for the community to come together and for incredibly talented artists like Mary to showcase their work.
We need that exposure.
Including her prized piece of the weekend.
20 hours of torch time, 5 hours of cussing when I broke a piece.
Well, what started in an elementary school music program has become something a whole lot bigger. This week, a group of young rock musicians at Cedar Island Elementary School finally got the concert they'd been waiting months to perform. Here's Sammy Salina.
Now you can just rock out.
Okay.
A universal pain
We're playing the full deal tonight, yeah.
parents of elementary musicians share.
He's 11 and he's a 5th grader, so of course.
is getting them to practice.
He's okay at practicing. It goes in waves.
I battle about trying to get him to rehearse.
But Stephen Wolf
We don't have May.
and Michael Fruncillo may have found a motivator.
And by the way, we're BCRC from Cedar Island Elementary.
Rock music.
When everybody else is filing into their classes, we're in there making noise. It is cool, right?
The band has been rocking and rolling for 2 years.
These kids are practicing outside of school. They take their guitar home, they're playing in their basement, they're playing their drums, and they come back prepared and ready to go each and every week.
I didn't really like it at first because I didn't like waking up early to go to it, but then I got used to it and I was like, this is very fun.
The beat, I really like guitars a lot, like the sound of them. I also like drums.
They had a big concert scheduled in February.
We were supposed to perform at the Minnesota Music Educators Association.
But the event was canceled for safety reasons related to Metro surge.
But then what came out of that was really cool because, we were able to pivot to an online situation.
So they gave this virtual performance. But rocking out isn't the same without an audience.
1, 2, 3.
It's really cool as a parent to see them do this thing that they love that so few kids get a chance to do.
I think it just builds a confidence.
A lesson learned that hard rock pays off. Sammy Solina, KARE 11 News.
Still to come, you'll think you're seeing double, and a dog story that is inspiring in more ways than one. Welcome back. At Goldfarb School of Nursing in Idaho, students are learning the science of medicine and the art of caring. And for an extraordinary group of students this year, no one has to figure out any of it alone. Here's Mike Bush.
My name is Rihanna. I'm going to be your nurse today.
At Goldfarb School of Nursing, they're learning the science of medicine and the art of caring.
All right, we're going to take a listen to your lungs, okay?
And it helps when no one has to figure that out alone.
Okay, I'm just going to listen to your belly.
Here, future nurses come from all kinds of paths, some from the military.
I like being hands-on, being on the front lines, working with people, and I think, I realize nursing correlates with that.
Some from moments that changed their lives.
Our grandma actually got sick and our cousin was able to be her nurse, and that kind of introduced the different aspects of nursing to us.
And some from simply growing up around it.
Our mom's a nurse and has been for her whole life, for our whole life, I guess. So we've been exposed to it since we were little.
Temperature is 99.5.
Different stories, different journeys. But if you spend a little time here, you start to notice something. At first, you think it's your eyes. 2 students who look alike. Then another pair, and another, until suddenly...
We got an email about it. We were like, there's 5 of us?
5 sets of twins in one nursing school. 10 students who didn't just choose the same path, they chose it together. For some, that bond has always been there.
No one really comes between us. It's always my sister first, and we're truly best friends.
Getting diazepam.
For others, it's just how life has always worked.
We've always done everything together. Pretty much every big decision we make is a group decision.
The doctor ordered some oxygen, so we...
And sometimes it just makes everything easier.
The first day of school is never scary because I always have someone with me. Yep, it's gonna sit right in there.
They study together and lean on each other.
Okay, good job.
Say I do bad on a test, she does good, we can talk about it. She can help me through it.
And in a program this demanding, that matters.
Causes of this would be...
Because nursing takes more than knowledge, it takes heart.
Other signs and symptoms similar to UTI.
Then they mix that with empathy, and to me that makes the best nurse.
And maybe that's the real connection here. Not just twin to twin, but person to person.
We just convince each other and then we're just on the same path.
Now they're learning to do for strangers what they've always done for each other.
There you go. You let me know if you need anything, okay?
And just when you've counted all the twins, you meet Mr. Barnes, the school's therapy dog. And yes, even he has a twin.
Look right here. Okay, guys, I want to see a little love.
All those pairs learning side by side.
There we go. Big smile.
Turns out the best thing you can bring to a life of caring for others is someone who's been caring for you all along.
Well, from Idaho to Iowa and from nurses to vets, the newest graduates of Iowa State University's College of Veterinary Medicine got an unexpected reminder of why they chose their profession as one of their own patients made a surprise walk across the graduation stage. Here's Megan Divers.
Honey has joined us to celebrate your special day.
You could hear and see the genuine shock as Honey took the stage for Iowa State University's College of Veterinary Medicine's commencement ceremony. A heavy feeling of love for Honey that, for many new graduates, college staff, and Lloyd Veterinary Medical Center staff started in December.
She was hit by a car in Des Moines on Christmas Eve.
Laura Bradner is Honey's foster mom now, but back then, they were strangers.
She was owned by a homeless man, and his friend was able to drive him up here.
Laura says the man didn't have the means to afford Honey's care, but didn't want to see her be put down. So he surrendered Honey.
She had fractures all over her skull. She had fractures in her sinus.
And as the College of Veterinary Medicine's Dean, Dan Grooms, recalls, the Lloyd Veterinary team got to work, first stabilizing Honey and then
fixing fractures, fixing things that they could fix. But the most important thing was also trying to understand and manage the brain trauma that had occurred as well.
The cost of care seen to by fundraising efforts from Jan Ersig's organization, Critter Crusaders of Cedar Rapids.
We provide the funds and we help guide the care. We work directly with the doctors on treatment plans.
And those procedures in the treatment plan and medical centers rehabilitation services 5 days a week have led to this. Honey back up and walking, or in this case,
look at that trot!
Honey now is a far cry from who she was in December.
She has the sweetest disposition. You can literally expect her to do anything, take her anywhere, and she just goes with the flow.
And it wouldn't be possible without Critter Crusaders of Cedar Rapids raising $27,000 so far for care, and the medical center and college's doctors, residents, vet techs, and of course, the once fourth years, now graduates.
I think it just gives them kind of peek into what they can do and the impact that they can have in taking care of animals.
As for Honey,
you can see it in her eyes that she just loves life.
And for that, both Honey and Laura will always be grateful for everyone, including this year's graduating class.
That's all for your good news. We do hope this half hour gave you a little bit of joy today. And until we see you again, have an excellent week, friends.